Well, I don't know what happened there. Well, I do know what happened. My computer just crashed. So maybe I need a faster computer. Um, but essentially, not really knowing what is happening. All right, I'm live again, in theory. Obviously, this is, but essentially, let's just pause that. This is all brand new for me. So I'm just going to sort of continue where I sort of left off, really, because this is just a practice sort of run, trying to get to grips with live streaming, which is what I intend to do. But I'm going to sort of start again, generally speaking, with the introduction. So, welcome to Warblog, the show. So this is my new show. This is sort of episode 0, I think I'm going to call this, because this is the other one. And in my show, my intention is to cover a particular event that I would have covered before in one of my other 600 or so videos, but a little more detailed, obviously with me involved, which is a first, and with a direct focus on really just discussing the events. So we're talking about the Kursk incursion, which sort of took place started on 6th of August. It's now the 14th of December, so it's about 4 months in. They've taken a few other places. I was talking to some extent about the benefits of representing this with hex and counter games. So we just have a quick look with the drawing tool here to just sort of draw the general sort of line. Sort of goes a bit like this. So essentially with some sort of reference to the South Front article, so they're reporting, I'm not sure whether there's a date on that, on the 10th actually, this is 4 days ago. Russian forces took control of Plakovo and advanced south. So let's just, so essentially that's Plakovo under there. So they move south there. Russian forces reportedly crossed the border and entered the village of Vladimirovka, which is over here. So this is a southern border crossing. Now, the thing to sort of just mention about that, obviously we've got troops here. So this is just sort of a gameplay. So you might think, oh, what are they doing there? Well, they do actually have that control, but the thing to note is that I had to squidge these onto the map because I got the map a bit wrong. I mean, obviously I could maybe shift it all over, but I can't do that simply. So that's how it is really at the moment. So they're moving south there. So you can almost imagine how that might play as a game, because then you've got to sort of move the units to do that. So if we wanted to simulate that, taking this in a slightly different tact to how I did it before. So we get rid of the map, and well, obviously, it's the Russian turn, so we can sort of move forward. Obviously, we've got some little North Koreans here, which is a sort of a first. I mean, I'm not sure how long they've been there. I get the feeling it's been quite a while. But obviously, we can attack on that. The first thing to maybe note, actually, before we do that, try that attack, is obviously we have drones, because I think the situation there is that these are going to be irregulars in villages, so they're going to get quite a big bonus. So we probably want to attack them with drones and things like that. So let's just, for the sake of argument of this video, just do that. I mean, obviously these are Lancet, which are sort of more suited to taking out tanks and things like that, but the game doesn't really differentiate too specifically against different types of munitions. So the Russians really are in the game at the moment are really only have Lancets and these Kublas. They probably have a whole range of other things that they use. It's just representative of drone technology, but the Lancets are better because if they actually fire against tanks, they're pretty effective. So these are now at 2.8, these at 3. I just really want to make sure we sort of get this battle, because I'm not going to do the ones for the others. But this is using all the drone capability, but let's not worry too much about that. So now we should be better placed to actually, because they're 3.4 depressions. We probably won't be able to enter because I've probably used up all the movement. But let's see what this. Okay, 7-1 DE. So we've routed one unit and pushed the other one back, but we can't get in there. I'm not sure whether these Ukrainian units will be able to. Not these North Korean units will be able to. But so we're basically moving on Plikovo, pretty much as the South Front article suggests, routing them back and halting just outside the area. Russian forces reportedly took control of Novyankova. And where did they decide Novyankova was? Yeah, Novyankova is here. So again, Russian forces possibly moving this way, attacking into there. And we've run out of air power because we spent it all down here. So just to maybe with North Korean support, let's see what they attack, because there's only one defending, but they are in a village. Results 7-1, still good odds. So they're only doubled, so that's not too bad. We still don't have any movement to move in there. The next attack that Southern reports, clashes continued near Kuryalovka. Let's just find that. There, of course, it's there. So Kurilovka is, I think, there. So it's quite interesting, really, because obviously from this disposition it'd be quite hard to get there. But they're pushing in that way. So there's a clear sort of maybe. There's a clear sort of enclave there, so presumably the Russians might have units here or here in order to push in that direction. So maybe it's some sort of configuration with the map in the first place to sort of try and represent that. Continued clashes near Nechiv and Nizaya Paroiva. Yeah. So now I've only put, so we look there, Nechiv. Nizaya Paroiva is there. So I haven't put it in. So essentially we've got these Russian forces moving forward there. So maybe we can see what we can do there. Let's just reload that. That's why. The Cloudflare is irritating because obviously it's a browser game and sometimes it gets in the way. But here we got quite a good front. Now obviously we don't have any air support, so they're going to be probably doubled up to quite a lot. But I think we should be okay with this attack. So 6-1 and DE. So we've successfully moved them back. But again, we don't have any movement to move in there. So we're able to sort of replicate a lot of these attacks that are detailed on the South Front site. Clashes continued near We just covered that one. So the last one is clashes continued near Cherkassia Konopleka, which is, let's just see if I can figure out where it is. It's somewhere around here. There, Cherkassia and Kornievka is sort of south of here. So again, we've got movement in this direction. I think these North Korean units have been incorrectly configured. Let's see what we can do with just 2 units. So this might be 2-to-1 odds DR, so getting a better sense. He's already out of movement, so I think he's only got 1 movement instead of 3. So I've probably done something wrong there in the setup, so I have to look at that. But we've covered the sort of the basic sort of kinetic movements as defined by South Front. I think that the next thing I just wanted to look at was the BBC article, and this is dated the 2nd of December. So again, this is quite out of date. As I said, I'm really just sort of prototyping my war blog, the show. But essentially, the headline is Ukraine's exhausted troops in Russia told to cling on and wait for Trump. Ukrainian soldiers say that they've been ordered to hang on to territory in Kursk region until Trump takes office with new policies in January. So that's obviously not just January, is it? I mean, it's all of December, and then I think, I'm not sure when he takes office in January. Is it the 6th, around then? But I mean, is he going to make those decisions instantly? It looks as though he's going to make certain decisions, but I mean, anything that sort of actually starts to take effect, I mean, we could be looking at the end of January or any time. So I think that this sort of sense that Ukraine's exhausted troops in Kursk are told to cling on is quite telling, really, because I do see this as more a political advance. Strategically, it doesn't really offer anything. It just means that they're fighting on Russian soil, destroying Russian villages, and upsetting Russian people. It's actually quite a large area that they've taken. But I think the key thing to bear in mind with this Kursk invasion is its Sudsa. So essentially, just get the tool back. Obviously, you don't really need this to know where Sudsa is. But that's a town. So all these other places are villages. There's a town there. The towns are actually heavy fighting. The villages are not so heavy, not so heavy, because they lack the defensive features. They probably get razed and destroyed as readily, if not faster, because there's really little to actually destroy. But I think that this is going to be the nut to crack. That's going to be so difficult. I think they're just going to move through villages piecemeal, one at a time. Almost 4 months after the Ukrainian troops had launched a lightning offensive into the Russian region of Kursk, text messages from soldiers fighting there paint a dismal picture of a battle they don't properly understand and fear they might be losing. But the thing is, it's interesting, really. I don't really want to sort of linger too much on that concept, but yeah, I mean, there was no intention, I feel, to actually hold this ground. It's political, in my opinion, because the fight is on Russian soil, not Ukrainian soil, and because of that, Russia is obviously falling back. They don't have supply line issues because it's Russia. And Ukraine obviously have to supply, and they've only got this one road really to sort of supply along. So they could quite possibly, I mean, especially with this move here and this move here, they could quite find that that they're an isolated pocket. If this gets cut off, if they can start putting pressure on this road. I mean, obviously there's other routes through. There could be routes here, but as these lines increase, this is going to become an isolated pocket, and that makes it difficult because they'll be out of supply and they'll probably just surrender. I mean, they're in advanced too far. But the fact that they've held it for 4 months, I think, really tells you everything. I'll move on to the CNN report next, because I just really want to sort of go through and deal with this as sort of as a general concept. So this is the 3rd of December. Unlimited enemy troops, no sleep. Ukrainian soldiers fight to hold on to Russians' Kursk region. So the Ukrainians are complaining or noting that the Russians have unlimited troops, which of course they do, because it's Russia. They've also got, as we can sort of see, and has been noted, they've got North Korean support, which I think is really interesting, because it does paint World War III, which is sort of interesting. I don't really know much more about what they've done. The dawn assault inside Russia's Kursk region never even got to a gunfight, yet betrayed the intensity of the battle in Kremlin territory. 5 Russians edged towards the grey Sunday dawn, but as thermal drone imagery shows, were killed or wounded by a drone as they tried to hide in the tree lines. This is just a general sort of intro to this article. Again, it's really just sort of reiterating that the Ukrainians are trying to hold that territory. Advocates of the Kursk operation suggest it provided Kiev with vital leverage for any future peace talks, perhaps initiated by the US President-elect Donald Trump, which means Ukraine needs to retain a foothold in the area in order to into spring at the least. So they're talking about spring, which is not autumn, so that's going to be February, March, April. But they might be able to do it. But I think with winter setting in and just sort of the encroachment on these supply lines, it's going to be quite difficult. The last article, which is it's not really an article, I just wanted to have a quick look at the Institute for the Study of War and Critical Threats. Their interactive map on Ukraine's incursion into Kursk Oblast is quite interesting. So I'm really just going to quickly paraphrase just a couple of things because they don't really say anything, and I don't really want to sort of spend too long talking about this. I'm not sure this video, well, I can see how long this video has been going, 17 minutes. So again, just to reiterate, this is just a prototype of my show, so to speak. But the Ukrainian advances into Russia. Ukrainian advances in Russia are areas in Russia where ISW assesses the Ukrainian forces have operated in or launched attacks against, but do not control. So this is just an introduction to how they approach defining their maps, so to speak. And this is what I wanted to just mention because I think it's interesting, and we also use the concepts of forward lines of own troops, which they call FLOT, lines of contact, and forward edge of the battle area. These are 3 different sort of terminologies that they use, which will identify in slightly different ways the lines separating friendly from enemy forces. The FLOT, the forward lines of own troops, is a line which indicates the most forward positions of friendly forces in any kind of military operation at a specific time. It does not include small, long-range reconnaissance assets and similar stay-behind forces. We largely use the assessed Ukrainian advances in Russia layer to depict areas within the Ukrainian FLOT, but areas over which Ukrainian forces have not yet established control. The Russian claims in Russia, the Russian claims in Russia layer is an equivalent for the claimed Russian control over Ukrainian territory layer, except for Russian territory as opposed to Ukrainian territory. So they're sort of using the same terminology, but obviously that's the Russian incursion into Ukraine, etc., etc. The thing that is quite interesting, really, I'm not going to sort of mention too much more on that. I think it was just interesting to sort of look at how they measure forward lines of own troops and lines of battle and forward edge of the battle area, something which maybe I can sort of pick up on, because as I try to sort of develop this show, I'd like to start using more formal terms as opposed to sort of just moving the counters around like an idiot, which is what I normally do. But I think one of the key things between the Institute of Study of War and, say, South Front is that they're actually sort of almost diametrically opposed, and they do intend to sort of be, entirely independent on this. So, it's good to get sort of both sides. But to be quite honest, I haven't really read as much as I should have. But I just want to sort of just finish up here. Obviously, we've pointed out the Korean troops because I do have some notes. But obviously, this is the War Blog show, just to sort of, if you're not really aware of what this is all about. So we've covered the Kursk operation here, but there are 4 other main areas of conflict in the world at the moment that we do cover. There's Israel, which I don't want to talk about too much at this moment, but they've obviously had quite a lot of quite a lot of activity in the North Gaza. I haven't completed this scenario. We just have maybe a quick look at it. Obviously, I haven't put any of the town names on. So there should, in theory, be other maps talking about the full Gaza extent, but there's also the Lebanon side of things. And obviously, you can't. It's now tied with the Syria situation. I mean, Syria was quite stable, and then out of the blue, obviously I think the Hayat Sham units from Idlib came through Aleppo and down to Damascus and basically took control of the whole country in less than a week, and mainly because the Syrian army stood down. But I mean, anyone that knows anything about this site will know that I have covered the Syrian civil war in quite significant detail in the past. So I mean, this is from the last one I did in 2022, but there was quite a lot involved here. But so essentially, in maybe another episode when I can maybe sort of just figure out how this, because I'm really just trying to figure out how OBS, which is the software I'm works. Obviously the computer crashed, and I maybe like to figure out why. Maybe I need a better computer or a dedicated computer. I don't know, but essentially, we just touch on sort of some of the other areas that we'll be covering. So I might do something about the Israel situation and actually sort of clarify that in a little more detail, and have an episode on Israel, and maybe an episode on Gaza, an episode on Lebanon, and in particular an episode on what looks as though the advances that Israel has made into Syria, because I think that is really significant. So it's all happening at the moment, and that's one of the reasons why I've sort of decided to sort of do this show as opposed to just doing the maps, because I've been looking at some other people who are covering these sorts of issues, and they do them well. I don't think I'm going to do them as well, but I think I'd like to sort of start trying to play at that level. But obviously we've also got the Sudan situations. I'm not sure whether we've got that under Sudan, but if we maybe do a search for Sudan, because I'm pretty sure I did something recently. So this was the start of the Sudan coup, which is still ongoing, and this is something I have been out of it for quite a while. So this is just talking about the capital, but there's a lot more to the Sudan situation that I will probably have a dedicated episode on. And obviously there's the Myanmar situation, and this is just one relatively small battle for the BGP5 base. So obviously this is a base with the Arakan army advancing south, taking out this place here, and then besieging the base, which is surrounded by mines and trenches, and causing the eventual surrender of its forces. So this is actually an incredibly huge conflict that's been going on now for a few years that I really want to get into and start sort of covering properly, and hopefully use this sort of opportunity to start making Warblog more active, because I have been sort of lost, so to speak. I've been not doing it, and I think one of the reasons for that is that I just haven't had the time, and I think my approach was to just, I find a battle, and then just put a battle together, and then just do a video of me playing the battle. And I think that whilst I do sort of enjoy that, just sort of playing the games, I think that because I'm not so much in the mood to play a game, I have really I've really sort of neglected actually doing that. And every time I see a headline for something that's interesting, I feel quite guilty. And so basically, I think what I'm going to try and do is to try and figure out how I can convert this into a show, which is pretty much going to be exactly the same thing, but will be less about me just playing the game through, and more about me trying to take a bit more time to understand the situation, to make some notes, which I'm sort of trying to do here, and then to sort of communicate that via the show portal, but keeping it quite short. So what we've had here is, according to my software, is 26 minutes. Now I could easily have gone through in an hour playing the game. If you look at some of the games on YouTube, I also intend to do it on Rumble, but it's really a case of actually getting some followers on Rumble to start with, because I have one, and that's me. So I need 3 more, I think, before I can start streaming on Rumble. But I will be streaming on Rumble and YouTube. But but of course the show will be more concise. So I'm going to leave it at that, as opposed to warbling on forever. So I hope you found the first show, because it's obviously not the first show. It's show 0, because the first show crashed. So there's going to be 2 shows. I might delete the first one. But just finally, obviously, Warblog is an online game that you can sign up for yourself. So obviously this is a bit of a sales pitch as well. There are over 1,000 games that you can play. So just jumping in randomly. These are parts of the Syrian civil war. So there's a lot of really interesting scenarios that are all historically relevant, and mostly have sort of a bit of a blurb and some links. I've been neglecting putting the links in and the blurb recently, but hopefully I'll be able to. But there are still, no matter how you look at it, they're all historically based. But I also do lots of other scenarios that aren't current. For example, the India-Pakistan War, 47, 65, 71. Things like the Paraguayan Civil War, anything post Second World War. So you've got things like the Syrian Civil War, the Ukraine Special Operation. This is quite interesting, really, because it's obviously the precursor to the Ukraine War. But things like the war in Somalia, 6 to 9 and 9 to present. So you can go back, and in particular, what I was looking for there is the Vietnam War. Not because it's anything special, but obviously it's not current. I mean, that's a long time ago. But you also got things like the Iran-Iraq War, which has got quite a lot of really sort of fairly big and significant scenarios that are really fun to play, so to speak. And so I will be doing episodes, say, on particular campaigns or battles or wars in general. So it's not just going to be limited to current affairs, but generally speaking, it will be very current affair focused. But I'll leave it at that, and I will be putting a lot more effort into my second show now that I know how I can do this streaming on YouTube. But I think in particular, what you might notice that my face is not particularly clear. That's because I sort of thought, I'll buy a green screen, I'll buy one of these lamps, and And I thought to myself, what happens if I can't do it? What happens if I could buy all this stuff and I can't do it? How's that going to work out? So this is really me just sort of trying to figure out, proof of concept really. So hopefully I might be able to get a better green screen background, because at the moment it's not a green screen background. It's I think I've done well on OBS, to be fair, because I had to download the plugin for removing the background. So it's a remove background, and then then I put an image behind that. But I'm pretty much getting the hang of it. So, but obviously for the next episode, I'll put in a little more effort, but it'll probably be on one of the other current events. So, what I'm thinking about for the next episode will be a general review of the fall of Syria. So, in particular, the Hayat Tahrir advance from Idlib through Aleppo into Damascus, and how that played out, and possibly looking at and considering why the Syrian army collapsed, whether it was, preordained, etc. But I'm certainly not going to be running on any schedule. But if I maybe give myself a week, I will be able to be a lot better prepared than I am for this one, and hopefully provide a far more entertaining and interesting show. But that will probably be Warblog, the show number 1. This is Warblog, the show number 0. So thanks for watching, and I'll speak to you later. Cheerio. And you turn it off. Oh, stop streaming. That will do. Cheerio.